there is no doubt in my mind, however Governor Walz did in terms of sincerity, that Vance won this debate.
Does Governor Walz have a problem with the truth? No.
They were talking at one point, Vance wanted to correct something about how Haitians got into this country. And he was right, and the moderators wouldn't let him correct it. It's very interesting.
But at the beginning, the two issues driving the campaign right now are Harris has a big deficit on the economy, Harris has a big deficit on immigration, and Republicans were happy tonight and Democrats a little bit nervous that on those two issues, Vance carried it.
J.D. Vance is much more experienced at this, at public speaking, at defending himself, at pivoting.
It's the audacity. I agree with you that we're in year 9 and no one knows how to cover the audacity. The audacity is that someone should have said, stop it, stop. Are you effing kidding me? And they should have dropped that F-bomb, right? I mean, they should have just, this is a debate. This may be the only chance people have to see the difference.
He broke MSNBC. J.D. Vance single-handedly broke MSNBC as they witnessed to their utter horror what was perhaps the single most brutal, lopsided public debate shellacking ever to take place in modern politics. We're going to take a look at the absolute train wreck for the Democrats last night. And make sure to stick with me at the very end of this video when I give you the 3 major takeaways from J.D. Vance's epic MAGA masterclass. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you stay sane in these insane times. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Before we dive into the Democrats' debate disaster, I want to give you a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, and that's the makers of Liver Health Formula. Gang, if you're one of the 100 million Americans struggling with all the weight gain and loss of energy that comes with a fatty liver, this is an absolutely awesome solution. Liver Health Formula is an all-natural supplement. It contains 12 clinically proven botanicals that help recharge and protect your liver. It's manufactured right here in the USA, and it's approved by independent American doctors. And if you click on that link below right now, you could try Liver Health Formula and receive a free bottle of blood sugar formula when you order today. So don't let a fatty liver keep you sluggish and inactive. Gang, you know this. Many of you know this. I myself recently lost over 60 pounds, and I can say it was one of the best decisions I ever made. So now it's your turn. Click on that link below or go to getliverhelp.com/Turley. Claim your free bonus gift. That's getliverhelp.com/Turley. One of my favorite sites on X is N Wokeness, and they summed up the debate last night perfectly. Tim Walz was the first white male DEI hire in history, and it showed. Now, we'll get to Tampon Tim in a moment, but let's start with the one who really owned the night, and that was obviously the one and only J.D. Vance. Here is how Vance masterfully introduced himself with poise and confidence at the very beginning of the debate.
So, Margaret, I want to answer the question. First of all, thanks, Governor. Thanks to CBS for hosting the debate. And thanks, most importantly, to the American people who are watching this evening and caring enough about this country to pay attention to this vice presidential debate. I want to answer the question, but I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are. I was raised in a working class family. My mother required food assistance for periods of her life. My grandmother required Social Security help to raise me. And she raised me in part because my own mother struggled with addiction for a big chunk of my early life. I went to college on the GI Bill after I enlisted in the Marine Corps and served in Iraq. And so I stand here asking to be your vice president with extraordinary gratitude for this country, for the American dream that made it possible for me to live my dreams. And most importantly, I know that a lot of you are worried about the chaos in the world and the feeling that the American dream is unattainable. I want to try to convince you tonight over the next 90 minutes that if we get better leadership in the White House, if we get Donald Trump back in the White House, the American dream is going to be attainable once again.
When it came to the economy, J.D. was absolutely brutal.
Harris has a record, 250,000 more manufacturing jobs just out of the IRA.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
So appreciate that. So if you notice what Governor Walz just did is he said, first of all, Donald Trump has to listen to the experts. And then when he acknowledged that the experts screwed up, he said, well, Donald Trump didn't do nearly as good of a job as the statistics
that's a gross generalization.
that he did. So what Tim Walz is doing, and I honestly, Tim, I think you got a tough job here because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did. And then you've simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens. I was raised by a woman who would sometimes go into medical debt so that she could put food on the table in our household. I know what it's like to not be able to afford the things that you need to afford. We can do so much better. To all of you watching, we can get back to an America that's affordable again. We just got to get back to common sense economic principles.
Did you see Walz there? Just look at him like he was ready to explode. He looked like Don Rickles. He was literally watching the debate slip through his fingers. And when the issue of border security came up, I mean, it was hard to watch.
Look, I think what Tim said just doesn't pass the smell test. For 3 years, Kamala Harris went out bragging that she was going to undo Donald Trump's border policy. She did exactly that. We had a record number of illegal crossings. We had a record number of fentanyl coming into our country. And now that she's running for president, or a few months before, she says that somehow she got religion and cared a lot about a piece of legislation. The only thing that she did when she became the vice president, when she became the appointed border czar, was to undo 94 Donald Trump executive actions that opened the border. This problem is leading to massive problems in the United States of America. Parents who can't afford health care, schools that are overwhelmed. It's got to stop, and it will when Donald Trump is president.
And as the debate continued, JD just kept hammering on Kamala's abject failures.
Here's what you won't hear is that Kamala Harris has already done it because she's been the vice president for 3.5 years. She had the opportunity to enact all of these great policies. And what she's actually done instead is drive the cost of food higher by 25%, drive the cost of housing higher by about 60%. Open the American southern border and make middle-class life unaffordable for a large number of Americans. If Kamala Harris has such great plans for how to address middle-class problems, then she ought to do them now. Not when asking for a promotion, but in the job the American people gave her 3.5 years ago. And the fact that she isn't tells you a lot about how much you can trust her actual plans.
I mean, really, all Walz could do was literally just stand there and watch Vance completely dismantle their ticket. JD even managed to flip the script on freaking climate change.
The governor mentioned that President Trump has called climate change a hoax. Do you agree?
Well, look, what the president has said is that if the Democrats, in particular Kamala Harris and her leadership, if they really believe that climate change is serious, what they would be doing is more manufacturing and more energy production in the United States of America, and that's not what they're doing. So clearly, Kamala Harris herself doesn't believe her own rhetoric on this. If she did, she would actually agree with Donald Trump's energy policies.
It was so bad. It was so colossally bad that one of the focus groups even sided with Vance on climate change. The one give me for the Democrats in every single, well, actually, there are two gimmies. There were two issues that the lying legacy media always frames in favor of the Democrats: abortion and climate change. And even there, the majority of voters sided with JD. It was just that bad for the Democrats. As for Walz, frankly, it was just one glitch after another. At one point, he was asked about his blatant lying about being in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square protests back in '89. He wasn't. He wasn't there. He claimed he was, but we have State Department records that completely contradict that account. He blatantly lied about it, as he does about everything. And he was, to their credit by these moderators, who were generally pretty horrible, but he was confronted with that. And here's how he tried to weasel his way out of it. Check it out.
Those are the things that I think are the values that people care about.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests, went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
That's the kind of glitching that we saw literally all night. But nothing in the history of debates came even close to comparing with this bizarre moment.
Senator, thank you. Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was in.
Wait, what?
I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look.
I've become friends with school shooters? I mean, you could think about that for 100 years straight. It'll never make any sense. I become friends with school shooters? That's why I support taking away your guns? I become friends with, I mean, I was literally mulling on, I become friends with school shooters. I mean, even the legacy media that are all Democrats, as you know, they're all Democrats. They're all part of the Democrat amplification machine. Even the members of the legacy media were utterly shell-shocked by that comment. Here's reporters confronting Walz about it after the debate.
What do you think your strongest moment was tonight?
Oh, just, I think it was a good debate. The public got to see a contrast. And I think the ending sums it up, the democracy issues important.
Governor, you said you become friends with school shooters during the debate. Can you clarify what you meant on that?
Can you clarify what you meant when you said you'd be friends with school shooters?
He ignores them. Here's my favorite part. So he could clearly hear them. He answers them. And then they ask him, how do you think the debate went? Well, I think, slow start, but I think I ended strong. What the hell was that about you befriending school shooters? And he ignores them. And here's the best part. He ignores them while staring intently at pizza. He acts like he's too distracted to even notice the comments that he noticed literally seconds ago by staring intently at pizza. He was in the process of befriending pizza. I mean, the level of embarrassment here knows literally no ends. Here's Scott Jennings of CNN summing it up all masterfully.
It's pretty clear Vance outclassed Walz tonight. I mean, I was watching this and all I could think of was, man, Walz is so in over his head. I mean, can you imagine this guy sitting in the White House Situation Room with that facial expression that's like 50% sheer terror and 50% extreme bafflement? I mean, it was amazing, the split screen difference between a confident Vance and a totally in over his head Walz. The answer on why he lied about his trips to China and the Tiananmen Square thing was probably the worst VP debate meltdown since Stockdale in '92. Who am I and why am I here? It was 2.5 minutes of absolute terrible. For Vance, night of redemption. All the political media has told us that Vance was a terrible pick and Walz was going to bring in all these voters. That charade is now over. Walz does not belong at this level of American politics. Vance does. Final verdict, Tim Walz wandered into the wrong bar tonight.
Tim Walz wandered into the wrong bar tonight. Jennings has such a wonderful gift of prose. I love it. And did you see those other pundits on CNN as they were listening to Jennings there? I mean, look, David Axelrod and the others. They just looked shell-shocked. They knew there was absolutely no way of spinning this train wreck. So what are some of the big takeaways from all of this? Well, first, I think historian Larry Schweikert is right on the money here, and I mean that quite literally. He's arguing that we need to keep an eye on where the Democrats start spending money. If we see them starting to send a significant amount of dollars redirected to down-ticket races, that tells you that the Democrats are in full retreat mode. In other words, reallocating funds away from the top of the ticket to the bottom of the ticket is a clear sign that the front lines have broken and the Democrats are now in full retreat. They're doing everything they can to minimize their down ticket losses. And that, by the way, does appear to be exactly what we're seeing. There does appear to be an uptick in money going to Democrat Senate races, down ticket races, which may indicate that the powers of BC funding the Harris-Walz ticket as a lost cause at this point. So we'll be keeping an eye on that in the days ahead. But I think the bigger or a second big takeaway from this is that the real losers of the debate last night were establishment Republicans like the vile Karl Rove, who made the utterly ridiculous claim 2 months ago that J.D. Vance was Trump's worst possible pick for VP. Even the New York Times, ladies and gentlemen, is admitting that Vance was an exceptional pick. So all the neocons that were hating on Vance, every single one of them now is egg all over their faces. J.D. Vance is clearly the future of the Republican Party, and that, for me, is the real takeaway from all of this. Last night, J.D. Vance solidified the MAGA takeover of the GOP. Last night was certainly great for November 5th. Don't get me wrong, no question. But we'll find that it will be even greater for 2028. Last night, J.D. Vance established himself as the uncontested frontrunner for the 2028 ticket, guaranteeing that MAGA has indeed successfully wrestled away control of the party from the neocon likes of Karl Rove, which means that no matter what happens in a few weeks, the MAGA movement is indeed destined for a very, very bright future. So on behalf of grateful patriots all across America, well done, JD. Well done.